Female sports will never be on the same level as male sports. And I'm going to state the obvious. I'm going to state what basically everyone already believes, but needs to be said. So I'm going to get into it in this video. I know some people are already going to be on the keyboards typing, "You're a misogynist. You're a sexist." Well, here's what. I love sex. So yeah, I am a sexist. And I love getting massages. So I am a misogynist. And look, the reality is, really, I'm not sexist because I only have sex with women. Okay, sometimes there's a man, and I'm just kidding, obviously, but let me actually get into women's sports. Now, I've been a big soccer fan my entire life, since I was 6 years old, back in 2008, back when Barcelona had Thierry Henry, Samuel Eto'o, Xavi, Busquets, and Iniesta dominating at their young age with Yaya Torre off to the side. You had all these great players, and I've been a Barcelona fan since then. I guarantee you there's not a single bigger Barca fan than me that you've met, unless you're in the city of Barcelona, in which that case, you probably have met one. I don't freaking know, but I've loved Barcelona my entire life. I always keep up with soccer. I watch the Premier League. I watch La Liga. Occasionally, I'll watch like the Bundesliga or Ligue 1. The UEFA Champions League is amazing. Unfortunately, though, Barcelona hasn't won it since 2015, and I was literally 13 years old when that happened. So it's been quite some time since then. But now let me talk about why I think male and female sports will never be the same. So obviously, in the last few years, you've had players like Megan Rapinoe. And by the way, look, I've actually watched a couple of women's sports games. Megan's a baller. She's a great player. Like, she's actually a determined, great player. I just think that she lets her mouth do too much of the running when really it should be her legs. But and people are going to take that as a sexual. No, I mean it like as in soccer, because obviously you have to run in soccer. Even goalkeepers run, all right? But I've watched a couple of women games, and look, I'm going to say right now, I don't really have any strong allegiance to. I mean, I support the women's team, at least for Barcelona and the U.S. women's national team. And, I've been grateful to have seen them at least win the World Cup twice. Unfortunately for the men's, I don't think I'll ever be able to say that. Although, hey, we have a good team enough right now that I think we could reach the semis in 2026 with Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, Christian Pulisic. Look, I know my stuff. Look, I'm a baller. I love soccer. I literally played soccer my entire life. But anyways, Megan Rapinoe, you had all these players that are constantly talking about the equal pay gap. Women should be paid as much as men. This has specifically been more happening to the WNBA, which literally is the most laughed at league. Even the G League doesn't get as much as made fun of as the women's league. And I also watch basketball, by the way. Huge Houston Rockets fan. You have a picture of like 2K14 right here. I don't know if you can tell, that's LeBron James back when he was in Miami. Big basketball fan. Other than that, I don't really keep up with any other sports. I only ever watched one baseball game in my life, and that was when the Astros won, because I'm from Houston, and it was nice to see them win back in 2017. Don't really watch football, besides for the Super Bowl. But with the WNBA and soccer, when it comes to women, you always have women complaining about men aren't watching our sport. We deserve to be seen equal. I'm going to tell you this right now. You're not equal in sports. You're not. Now, if you're a woman and you love playing soccer and you want to make a career out of it, cool. I wholeheartedly will support you. And look, I watch occasional games from the women's teams. But here's the thing I've noticed that is different. And here's the reason why men's sports will always be significantly more popular than women's sports, at least when it comes to soccer and basketball. The reasons why it will be is because there isn't much of a culture to it when it comes to the women's side of things. When you're in the men teams, when you think of Barcelona, you think of a historic team that's won 5 Champions League, 2 trebles, has won multiple La Ligas. I believe we've won 32-ish La Ligas. I'm not sure, probably more. And when you think of like Real Madrid, you think 14 Champions League. When you think of the Los Angeles Lakers, you think 17 championships. They've had Kobe, LeBron, Magic Johnson. You think of all these eras dominating for history. These are players that the mainstream know. One of you guys out there watching have probably never seen a single basketball game, but you're going to know who LeBron James and Michael Jordan is. Some of y'all out there have never watched a football game, and you know the name Tom Brady. Some of you have never watched soccer, and you know the name Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi. You know these names because there's a culture and there's a recognition to them. They're beyond icons. Their legacy status is forever. When Kobe passed away, everyone was talking about him because they loved him. They loved that Mamba mentality in him. But with women's, I want you guys right now, without searching it up, name a WNBA player. Now, I know most of y'all are thinking the same thing. That one girl who got arrested in Russia for weed possession. You can't even name her name, and she was all over the news. There isn't much of a culture. I guarantee you a lot of you guys don't even know the name of your team, if you're from America, the name of your WNBA team. Now, some of y'all may know Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe, Marta from Brazil. That's another player. But you don't really know their legacy. You don't know what they've done and everything. And when you know these teams, like the Houston Dash, that's the team here, the women's team here. And we actually had Carly Lloyd, who scored a hat trick in the 2015 World Cup final. She won the Ballon d'Or for women, so it was cool to see her from Houston, or play for Houston, I mean. But when you look at all these teams and the women's teams, there isn't much of a culture. Their history isn't really known. And now I'm going to get into why their history isn't known. And the reason why is because men are just more entertaining when it comes to sports. Because this has been something from the dawn of humanity. Men love watching violence. Men love seeing other men hurt each other. Whether it was the Colosseum in Rome, it's always been... The reason why sports are popular is because it's men competing with one another. Because that's just the natural instinct of men. Men love to compete with one another. Whether it's about a job, whether it's about the certain girl, whether it's about the nice cars. Men compete with one another. And that's why sports is so popular. Because men made it popular. How often do you see a woman that's a sports fan? Pretty rare. Pretty rare. But how often is it for a man to be a sports team? Because nearly every man I know has an allegiance towards a sports team. Very few women I know even watch sports at all, because it's a man-dominated thing. It's kind of like makeup. When you go into like makeup products or companies or whatever, they're dominated by women, so they're going to sell better to women. Even if there's gay men, they're never going to sell equal or make equal to the women, because the women just dominate that sport. Same thing with fashion. Fashion is dominated by women and gay men. And the same happens with sports. The sports is dominated by men. Men watch most games. Your main viewers are men. And so men want to see other men be violent to one another, because that's another layer to it. When you watch these games, you know Sergio Ramos, violent. Patrick Beverley, they're all violent. They're brutal. And so there's a storyline to it too, because you know these players, you know their legacies on the line, you know everything. The World Cup final, just think of the World Cup final. That's something I think everyone knows. You had Messi, 35 years old, about to retire. This is his final World Cup for Argentina. That's what's on the line with him. And then with Mbappe, you had this young talent, just got offered $1 billion to go to Saudi Arabia. This man who's seen as the next generation, they're facing up against one another in the World Cup final. But with women's, you don't think about that. You just, again, Alex Morgan, cool, USA player. Megan Rapinoe, the girl who's talking shit about her country on live television. There isn't much of a storyline there. And then another thing that needs to be added on is a lot of times, a lot of these women will shit on men for not watching their sport. You can't shit on your target demographic. A good example of this is back when Gillette released this commercial. Back in 2019, I believe. In 2019, they released this commercial where it was basically trying to imply that men are bad. This whole commercial saying boys will be boys, men will be men. It was showing how boys shouldn't rough play with one another. Men shouldn't go out and ask out a girl in public on the street. And it was just shitting on like how guys are more violent, guys do this, guys, and this is our way of just having fun. Why would they release a fucking commercial like that when Gillette mainly sells to men? Who's the ones that need shaving products the most? Men. We got beards. We got hairy areas down there that I'm not legally allowed to say on YouTube. Well, not legally, but I'm not allowed to say on YouTube because demonetization reasons. You know, you can't expect someone to like your product if you're shitting on them. It's like if I told you, buy this water bottle, buy this water bottle. But hey, fuckface, you're a dickwad. You're a virgin. You've never had your dick touched. No woman loves you. Nothing. You're pathetic. You're a loser. But hey, buy this water bottle. You're obviously going to look at me and think, what the hell? I ain't buying shit from you. You just insulted me. And the same thing applies to when it comes to sports and everything you sell. Sports is a product to sell. It's why when you see sports teams, they'll have sponsorships on their jersey because they're trying to sell that. And they're also, why do you think there's always commercials of, we have this big game coming up, the UEFA Champions League, Barcelona faces Manchester City. It's always a product. Why do you think PSG bought Messi and Neymar and Mbappe? Because they're the big players and they can be like, look guys, we have the best players in the world. So come to the Parc des Princes and watch PSG play, best team in France. You want to see the greatest of all time play alongside maybe the future greatest of all time? Then come to Paris or watch it on TV where they can get millions of viewers or buy the jerseys. I guarantee you jersey sales went up when Messi joined by a significant amount. Same thing when Ronaldo went to Saudi Arabia for Al Nassr. And that's the thing. You're a product selling. But however, if you're like, hey, we got Messi on our team, but hey, you fuck faces, Messi doesn't give a shit about you guys. And you guys are all poor losers. It's like, you're not going to buy their product. You're not going to buy their merchandise. You're not going to buy, the TV, getting the Paramount Plus so you can watch the Champions League. You're not going to do that. You're just going to think, what the hell? And that's the issue right now with women's sports. You're out there complaining all the time of the wage gap, this wage gap. And let me actually talk about the wage gap when it comes to women's sports. The wage gap in sports, and I'm not talking in general because I don't know enough about that. But when it comes to sports, it's pretty obvious why there's a wage gap. And there's a justifiable reason. Because your games don't sell. Your games do not sell enough for you to be able to make that money. Because when Messi plays, whether it's for Inter Miami or PSG or Barcelona or whatever team he's playing for, Messi has all eyes and ears on him. The people from Argentina, they watch it on TV. The people of the team they're watching, they're there in the stadiums, filled, packed, 100%. They're there to see Messi play. But with women, it's rarely ever full. Pretty empty a lot of the times. And you don't sell. And not only that, but it's not just the stadium itself. It's obviously, I think most of the revenue comes from, watching the game on TV because more people are going to watch the game on TV. Not enough people are going to watch your game. There isn't culture, there isn't this, there isn't that. There's so many things piling on one another that makes it that women's sports will not be as popular as men. There's just a historical factor. There's the fact that the sports are dominated by men. Men love sports. And all that. And that's just the unfortunate reality. And by the way, Megan Rapinoe, let me talk about her specifically. She's always out there talking about, oh, we're not getting paid enough. Look, I'm a motherfucker who works a real job. All right. Okay. Sports is a real job, obviously. But I'm out there hustling, trying to make my money, living paycheck to paycheck. And then I got Megan right here, who lives in a nice house, probably has nice cars. She has all these brand endorsements. And she's out there talking about, the patriarchy is wrong to women because I can't make enough money. It's like, shut the fuck up. Is it just me or is it that celebrities are so unself-aware? It's like if I went to a cancer patient and said, man, I wish I had the confidence to rock a bald head. You know what? You're cool, man. You're so lucky to be in the position you are, man. I wish I could shave my head just like you. It's like, what the hell? That's just being a dickhead. And that's the reason why people aren't going to watch your sports. They don't care about you. They don't care about your beliefs. Okay? Because the reality is there's liberals and conservatives everywhere. You can't just suck up to one side and then expect the other side to just be like, whoa, what the hell? But that's really more of a in general thing. Nowadays, we live in this time where the other side's being silenced. It's always like you have to have a mainstream belief. I mean, why do you think Hollywood has so little conservatives? Why do you think all of this is happening? Why do you think they try to silence Andrew Tate on YouTube and Twitter? Why do you think all of this is happening? Because the media is trying to censor certain things. But hey, that's another conversation for another day. Overall, the best way I think, and this is genuinely, there's some things I have that I think could improve the women's game. Number one, this one's more for the WNBA. I would say lower the rims, lower the baskets, because dunks are a big part of the game. Why do you think Shaquille O'Neal's so popular? Because he dunks. Dwight Howard was very popular. There's literally a dunk competition. So, and not only that, but women tend to never be as tall as men. It's like, just lower the rims. Sure, you can call it disrespectful, but I guarantee you there'd be at least more highlights you could show. Be like, hey, look, women can dunk. That's cool. Another thing is, don't shit on men. Don't just go out as ready to be like attack men and all that. Just focus on the sport. Focus on trying to build a legacy. Another thing I would recommend is lower the prices for when people watch your games. Maybe your tickets are not worth that much. And that's the same thing I apply to my men's Houston Dynamo team. The Houston Dynamo games are pretty expensive, but no one goes to them. If you watch any Dynamo game, they're pretty empty. You see more orange than people, and that's because the seats are orange. Lower the prices. Try to find like some type of discount or coupon. That's what the LA Clippers did when they first became an organization. When they first started off, it was, hey, want to see NBA games and you want to see them play here in our stadium? Well, here's a cheap discount. Come watch the Clippers. And now the Clippers, they got Kawhi Leonard, they got Paul George. It's like they figured out what worked for them. They did it and they kept pushing it. And now they're a successful organization. And one day maybe they'll win a championship. I doubt anytime soon, but now they're a team everyone knows. They make good money. And they're competing for championships. Do those things. Maybe try to find stories, because sports is not just people kick a ball around. There's stories and narratives. Like I said earlier, the World Cup final was greatest of all time at the end of his career. Hasn't won the World Cup. He's won everything. But Kylian Mbappe, this young, bright star, heading out or is trying to prove a point that he can win a World Cup on his own, be the captain of the French national team. It's like there's storylines to these games. That's why El Clásico has been so popular for over a decade, because it was Messi versus Ronaldo. It became the two best teams in the world facing each other twice every season. There's storylines, and that's why the Premier League is the most popular league in the world, because you got storylines like Manchester United doing bad with Eric Ten Hag. You got Chelsea paid 120 million for Caicedo and 100 and something million for Enzo Fernandez, and yet they're still 14th place somehow. You got Arsenal, who have been horrible for so many years, but now they're like balling. You got City, who had oil money in 2012, now finally living up to their potential with Erling Haaland being the greatest striker in the world, and now signed for Prime and all that. There's storylines to it. Maybe try to find a way. Maybe make beef. Maybe next time USA and Sweden play, I don't know, Sweden is a random country, you have like Megan Rapinoe beefing with like one of the you kind of have to add in the WWE flavor into it. Don't go too far like WWE does. I don't watch the WWE. That shit's just fake as fuck. But you got to add a little bit of a story. But when it comes to women's sports, there's never a story. The only ever story is when that WNBA player got arrested in Russia. That's the only ever story that I can even remember. You need to find narratives. You need to find that. But I think another thing that also, I think this is a final thing that could really help improve the leagues and all that, is admitting that you're never, or at least for the time being, you're never going to be anywhere near the level of the men's leagues. It's kind of like DC and Marvel. Marvel is triumphant in all their MCU movies, and they built up to Endgame, while DC struggled. They made Batman vs. Superman. They made all these movies, and they struggled. And the issue why they struggled, this is why DC struggled against Marvel, is because DC wanted to be Marvel. They were like, okay, we got to copy that formula and we got to do it. And it messed up for them. And now they're doing another reboot. I think what women need to do, or at least in their sport, is maybe instead of focusing on why is the men's league more popular than us, you got to focus on yourself. Better the league. Find stories. Find things like that. It's kind of like if a fat 600-pound dude saw like some six-pack shredded muscly dude and thought, how come he gets all the women? Why can't I get the women? It's like, no, G. Don't focus on the guy with the six-pack. Focus on yourself. Lose the weight. If you want to talk to women, lose your weight. Maybe shower. Like, you got to do self-improvement. We live in this time where people aren't remembering that the choices and the decisions you make in your life are up to you. Stop it with this therapy bullshit. Like, therapy ain't gonna help you. Weed is not gonna help you. This whole "I'm being traumatized" thing, it's like all of this isn't gonna help you. You gotta self-improve on your own. That's all I gotta say for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I know people are gonna disagree, agree. I don't care. My comments are always open, both on Rumble and YouTube. So yeah, that's all I gotta say. See you on the next one. Ciao.